Hey, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is great to be here on this cold day in Arkansas. Woo, it's like 10 degrees Fahrenheit now. Tonight is supposed to get down to zero. And I know those of you who live up north, that's no big deal. But down here, that is really bitter cold weather. I need to get Bernie Sanders here. Bernie Sanders, he's the guy, whenever it's a hot day in the summer, it's like, oh, we got to spend money on climate change. This is real, right? The global warming. He always does that on a hot summer day. But on a cold day, like now, like record low temperatures in Arkansas, oh, temperature, weather is not climate. Yeah, so they play it both ways. But it's cold. But the good news is next week is supposed to be back in the 60s. And before you know it, before we know it here in Arkansas, it is going to be spring. And that's nice on some levels, but we get a lot of rain and the grass grows. So I'll be out mowing. I need one of those big riding mowers. Sasha at her dad's home, we have one. So I need one here, I tell you. But it keeps me in shape. Keeps me in shape. Thank you guys for being here. If you're new to the show, welcome. We do this Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday, we start at 11 a.m. And tomorrow's, God, I'm all mixed up. Today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, okay, wow, okay. So then tomorrow is 11. And then Friday, we have the show at 8 p.m. It's kind of our evening show, end of the week, kick back. You can call in. It's a lot of fun. And last night, we had a roundtable. That's on Substack. I always push this out here because I definitely would like people to sign up for it. We had a great time in the roundtable last night. We have a lot of good contributors. I don't want to even say who they are because I'll miss someone because they're all really good. And we had a great discussion last night. And we do that every Tuesday night. So if you're a Substack supporter, you get that every Tuesday, and you can just watch or you can participate. Allows you to talk. And then also every Friday I do a video or a column just for my subscribers. But Monday through Thursday I do it for everyone. It's free, so I might as well sign up for my Substack. I am streaming now on YouTube, Rumble, and on X. Follow me on all the platforms. On X, I'm Ramsey Paul. I do a lot of content, a lot of posts every day. So follow me on there. It's free. And big news. I am so excited. Tonight, we kick off. I think we're going to call it the Wednesday wrap up. And I got that name from AI. I had no idea what to call it. So I'm like, well, AI is supposed to be smart. It can figure all this out for me, right? And and I also so that's going to be tonight with Z-Man. And you want to see Z-Man, he is so cool. And AI created this logo for me. And I thought, this is pretty clever. See, we don't need humans here. The Rams and Z-Man, it kind of fits. So we're going to have our show tonight at 7 p.m. Be there. We definitely are just going to be 1 hour. We're going to keep it to 1 hour though. I think the first 30 minutes we'll talk about like foreign policy, then we'll pivot to domestic for the previous week. So it'd be really good. Z-Man's a real sharp guy. He's got a good mind. He's a guy I read his column every day, listen to his podcast every Friday. I met him for the first time at American Renaissance I think it was November it was. And we had a great time. We talked for hours together. We have a good synergy. So be there tonight. I'm looking forward to it. And all right, I'm back. I'm sorry. I had a technical problem. My cord of my mic had an issue and I had to fix it. So I do tech support too. I am the talent. I am the producer. I am the director, and I do tech support. So I had a tech support issue. Boomer tech. My mic got unplugged. So I hope you're hearing me now. Okay. Yeah, boomer tech. So I am back. I am back. So yeah, that's tonight. The weekly or Wednesday roundup. I think that's what we're going to call it. I'm not sure. But I like the logo, and AI came up with that. My goal is one day AI will be able to use my image and my voice, and maybe Z-Man's voice, and then we could do the whole show without actually being there. The AI could do the show for us because they know, AI knows what we think. It could just do it. So this is the ultimate goal of mine, that I don't even have to be around. The AI can live my entire life and can live your life. That's where we're going to go. So we don't need humans anymore. All right. But until then, it will be the real us there. And I'm really excited about tonight. I really am. So that's going to be every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And it's not going to be called Happy Homelands. Happy Homelands. I enjoyed that show. Maybe I'll do that again in the future, but that's more for someone that's, I think, foreign. I did it with Tina Veek for years. And then she died of like a heart problem after she got the vax. And sad, great girl. And then I had Styx on, and Styx did a great job, but then he got like arrested in New Orleans and for allegedly domestic assault. I don't know. And then Sasha, and then she ended up getting married to me. So see, bad luck happens to everyone. That's my co-host. So we're going to rename this. So I don't want any bad luck happen to Z-Man. So that's tonight, and it should be fun. We'll have more than enough to talk about for an hour. It's going to be crazy trying to get everything in, but we like all your feedback during the show too. So we will get there. All right. I want to cover more stuff, domestic items here today, but there's a lot of foreign stuff I want to cover too. So I'm going to go over that. And because Trump is just, he's been, well, let's read this, okay? His statement about Zelensky. This is key. Let's see here. All right. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian, Zelensky, talked to the United States of America into spending $350 billion to a war that couldn't be won and never had to start, but the war without the U.S. and Trump. I love what Donald Trump, I love him because he writes his own post, because a communication person would not use his random capitalization and just weird things like putting his whole name in caps into quotes and will never be able to settle. All right. So this is there's a lot of things here. He does not like Zelensky. First, he takes a jab at Zelensky because Zelensky, he was an entertainer. But to be fair, so was Donald Trump. He started out as a real estate mogul. But I think one of the things Donald Trump loved was Apprentice. He loves being on TV. So Trump was like an entertainer too. But Zelensky, I guess, was a moderately successful comedian. And he talked to the United States spending $350 billion. Well, there's a debate how much money has been spent on it. But we don't know where all the money went. Zelensky says he doesn't know where half the money went. So that's a problem. That's a problem because our check cleared, right? Our check cleared, but they don't know where the hell the money went. I have ideas. So there it is. To get into a war that couldn't be won and never had to start. Okay. So this is a war that probably didn't need to happen. And a lot of responsibility was Ukraine through their attack of the Donbass after starting in 2014. See, there's been a lot of narratives that the West has tried to push that's fake, that hit for no reason, just like Hitler. Putin woke up one day and attacked Ukraine for no reason, probably because he wants to take over the world or something like that. Well, no. This has been going, the history is long. It really kicked off in 2014 when that fat bitch, Victoria Nuland, that she's a neocon, she helped to spearhead a coup with Soros money. It was under Obama. Obama was just busy watching basketball, though I don't think he cared. And they engineered a coup against the elected president of Ukraine, who was friendly with Russia. They didn't want that because they wanted to topple Ukraine to be an enemy to Russia. Because eventually their goal, and they stated this, was to destroy Russia. And that kicked it off, and it started a civil war in 2014, which in 2022 led to Putin invading the Donbass, because the people of the Donbass, who are mostly ethnic Russians, they voted to break away from Ukraine. So that's the context there. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization, in that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? We have a big, beautiful ocean. I love how he just does random capitalization. He's such a boomer, and I don't mean that meanly. As separation. So we have this big, beautiful ocean called the, it used to be called the Atlantic Ocean. Are we going to, maybe we should name that to the American Ocean, what used to be known as the Atlantic Ocean, between us. And yeah, well, Trump's right. I mean, part of it's financial. We got hoodwinked, pissing away our money on this losing venture at a war that it couldn't be won. Russia's huge compared to Ukraine. They have a lot more men. And Ukrainians, all the young men are died. I mean, they've lost a generation. It's been horrific. But the neocons were urging on this war. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden, well, he didn't care about Europe. Joe Biden didn't know what was going on. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half the money was sent to him is missing. Well, that's weird. How did half the money go missing? Yeah. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, and this is strong language, but it's true. Zelensky is a dictator by definition. They were supposed to have elections, I believe, last May, but Zelensky canceled them because he probably thought he would lose. Never mind, the United States, we had our elections during the Civil War. There was elections during World War II, but Zelensky canceled elections, but he's done more than that. He's also arrested opposition leaders, opposition journalists. His secret police killed Gonzalo Lira he was an American, a guy I interviewed. He was just a commentator. They murdered him, and Biden was okay with that. And that cross-dresser that was over there at the time. There was a guy, you remember him? He was a dude, I forget what his name was in America. It was like John. He was a leftist radical. Then, oh my God, it turned out for all my life, I was trapped in the wrong body. I'm really a girl. So he put on fake boobs and a wig, and he did like the most cringe-worthy propaganda for Ukraine. I don't know why Ukraine thought this was a good look, but they picked him. And he was agitating Coach Red Pill should be arrested or murdered, and Coach Red Pill was. And then eventually this guy, I forget, I think he called himself Sarah then. He started to threaten death on some U.S. senators, and that got even a little much for the Ukrainians. And so his act, he was a she then, got old, and then she disappeared. And now he's transitioned back to a man. So see, this is science. He was assigned the wrong sex at birth, like he lived 30, 40 years as a man. But that was wrong. He was actually a woman. So he became a woman because that's science, bigot. And then like 2 years later, I'm actually a man again. So that whole thing is just nuts. Let's see here. He refuses to have elections. Yeah, so he doesn't have elections. So he's a dictator. Zelensky is a dictator. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left. And by move, I think he means he better move the hell out of the country quickly. He's not going to have his head on his shoulders pretty soon, unless he gets out of the country. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating into the war with Russia, something I'll admit only Trump, and for whatever reason, Trump is capitalizing his name and putting it in quotes. I have no idea why. I just don't have any idea why, but he does it because he's like just crazy. I don't know, but it makes sense. But this is Trump. I don't know, but he does this, and Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Well, Biden didn't run his administration. The neocons did, like Anthony Blinken. And Europe has failed to bring peace. And Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died. And so it continues. So, wow, that's a pretty harsh statement. If I was Zelensky, I think Zelensky went to the United Arab Emirates the other week. I think the rumor was he was setting up bank accounts there for himself, and he took his wife, and he's setting up a business there. I think he's planning his getaway with our tax dollars, because I don't think Zelensky can retire in Palm Springs. That was one of his options. Now he's got to go to like the UAE, or he's Jewish, so I guess maybe he could go to Israel. But I don't think Zelensky wants to end up like Ceausescu. Ceausescu, if you remember, in 1989 was a dictator of Romania. And then he started to be overthrown. He didn't really understand what was happening. And I think it was on Christmas Day, Ceausescu and his wife, they were shot. So I don't think that's a likely outcome for Zelensky, a very likely outcome, unless he gets the hell out now. So I don't think Zelensky's that stupid. I'm not saying he's a smart man, but he's kind of intelligent like a rat. He can figure things out. And it's not going to go very well for Zelensky then. And I'm sure all the Europeans are gasping and grabbing their pearls, clutching their pearls. And that one European guy's probably crying again. He's probably crying again reading that. And the girl bosses are probably screeching, but things are changing. Things are changing, and to me, this is a definite sign. Sign. I don't know how you get more obvious that we're getting out of this mess, and people need to get on board that that's the way it's going to be. All right, not everyone is on board with that yet. Some people are a little slow, including some Republicans. And Miss Lindsey Graham, who I have no doubt they have blackmail on this dude. And I'm not saying with little girls, not with little girls. I'm just saying that. That's not what I mean. But Lindsey Graham, he, for some reason, is not with the program. So he is adding another $48 billion in aid for Ukraine over until like 2030, and Ukraine's not really going to be the same country then. So yeah, Lindsey, nice try. No, Lindsey, we are not giving more money to Zelensky. In fact, Trump's official position is, bitch, you got to pay us back. I mean, right now, bitch, you got to tell, where'd our money go? We want to look at the books. You owe us this money. So I don't know where Lindsey gets this idea. We're going to give them more money when they squandered what they had and they're losing the war. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But Lindsey, he's like a lot of politicians, is controlled. I'm not saying what politicians, but hey, Tom Cotton, but a lot of politicians in America are sadly controlled by foreign money. And, we got to fix that too. That is a problem. Let's see here. We'll take some more. We'll get to domestic stuff too. May keep it today just an hour because we'll have a show tonight too. So if you have a super chat or rants or power chats, get them in. That helps the show, and I do appreciate it. And I do not get USAID like all the other commentators. All right, let's listen to this.
We know that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has been having some critical meetings overseas, Saudi Arabia. We've got Steve Witkoff joining him as well, Mike Waltz. What can you tell us is coming from that? He seems to be putting out some optimism that things may be getting closer to an actual deal being made.
Well, I want to tap the brakes a little bit. It does look optimistic, but they really didn't even discuss Ukraine. Supposedly, both the Russians and the Americans, they had the same message. They met for 4 hours, 4.5 hours, Rubio and his team with the Russian team. And they both said they didn't really discuss Ukraine. They just talked about they need an open dialogue. They decided to open embassies again so they can discuss. So that's good. They said it was pretty positive, and then we're going to get the Russians and Americans. They're going to set up another team separate from Rubio, like a working team, to come together, working together to come up with a proposal for Ukraine. But that's a good idea. So both sides are working together. They may be able to come up with something. And then at that point, and when they have a working agreement of some kind, it'll probably be, what does Russia get? What does Ukraine get? One of the issues is going to be Zelensky's got to go. He's going. That's just given. One way or the other, he's going. He's either going to run off with his riches or he's headed to the cemetery. But that's the options for Zelensky now. So that needs to all be decided. And then once they hammer out all the details, then they'll have Putin and Trump have a meeting. But at that point, everything will be hammered out. But as of today, that hasn't been hammered out.
I'm so glad you asked, Sandra, because this is a truly monumental step towards peace in the Russia-Ukraine war. At the direction of President Trump, Secretary Rubio, a special envoy Steve Witkoff, and our national security advisor Mike Waltz.
Isn't it good to see serious men dealing with this issue now? It really is. It's like the old America. And this is what we need.
Spoke to the Russians today and made significant steps towards peace. This is the first step of many. And I'd like to point out that our administration, including President Trump himself, has been in direct correspondence with the Ukrainians as well, including President Zelensky. President Trump also talked
Zelensky, the failed comedian who's stolen our money.
To our European allies yesterday. He had a phone call with France's President Emmanuel Macron. Next week, the Prime Minister of the UK will be here at the White House. And so we're ensuring that all parties are heard. But you have to speak to both sides of the war in order to truly negotiate a deal and problem solve. And this is a significant first step towards peace. Again, when the previous administration had no negotiations, no discussions, really no diplomacy in this effort, President Trump and his team are taking significant steps with just being here for 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's a key point, because the previous administration was controlled by neocons like Anthony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, those type of people that looked at everything being a morality play, meaning anyone we don't like is Hitler and they want to take over the world, and negotiating any peace is redoing 1938 and Chamberlain's appeasement of Hitler, and that's going to cause Putin to be emboldened like an emboldened Hitler to continue on to take over the world. The narrative about, by the way, Hitler was false, but beyond that, it's definitely false now. It's just ridiculous. But they put everything through that lens. So there could be, what kind of negotiation can you have with the devil, Hitler? It's just ridiculous. So now we have serious diplomacy and we want to end the war. Two reasons. The first reason is Trump's America first, and we don't have the money to piss away on this anymore. But I think Trump also, just from a humanitarian reason, this has killed 2 million people. It didn't need to happen. We need to end the bloodshed. So I know that Europeans are probably opposed to ending the war, but it's going to basically, Trump is going to normalize relations, I think, with Russia. And I guess Europe can do whatever they want. If they want to prop up the little dictator of Ukraine, I guess good luck with that. I don't know how they're going to do it, because Europe, they have pissed away their manufacturing base. They no longer have that. They no longer have serious armies. I was listening to a video of this one guy explain like the British Army, they only have like one division and a couple regiments that aren't even functioning. They have like 40 tanks. I mean, they're not a serious country anymore, Britain, militarily. So there's nothing they really can do. Oh, they can issue proclamations, and that EU bitch can get up there. He can cry, and they could talk about their feelings. Maybe they can do a TikTok video and do a dance, but that's not power, and that's what we're seeing right now. So hopefully we'll get some good resolutions for that. I think we're going to get some progress on that, though. But let me just see here. Some more Trump statements about this. And I haven't talked about Ukraine, you know, like it's almost been 6 months because it's just been, for the most part, a dreary war where Russia has been advancing, but very slow. There's not been a lot of big breakthroughs. It's just been a war of attrition, slow progress, and it's not been very exciting, right? It's not good. It's not fun drama. And so we finally have some breakthroughs. And yeah, Russia is still winning, but again, it's just a slow grind. Here's Russia. Here's Trump.
Do you have any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years.
Yeah, this is an important point that Trump has brought up. I use the analogy, Trump is like a janitor in this situation. Europe and Zelensky and that whole bit, they created a huge mess in the bathroom. Vomited everywhere, pooped everywhere, pee everywhere. And they didn't do anything about cleaning it up. So Trump's having to come up in and clean it up. So Trump is rightfully saying, hey guys, you had 3 years, right? Before I came in, what in the hell were you doing during those 3 years? Can you explain it to me? You weren't doing any negotiations. So, and now you're bitching that you don't have a seat in negotiations? Well, you had 3 years. Russia had always said during those 3 years they were willing to sit down and negotiate. And if you remember, dear viewer, that in 2022, after the invasion of February, by March, there was already a deal worked out. The Russians worked out a deal with the Ukrainians in Istanbul, Constantinople, as it will be renamed. But in Turkey, they worked out a deal. And they both agreed to it. But then immediately when the Ukrainians went back to Kiev, not Kyiv, when they went back to Kiev, the Biden administration, they sent that moppy-haired guy, Boris Johnson or whatever, the British PM at the time, to scuttle the deal. Because like, no, we don't want peace. We want the war to continue because we're going to put sanctions on Russia. Russia's just a gas station with nukes. They're going to collapse and we can break apart Russia. And by next year, we will have gay pride parades in Moscow. And little boys in Moscow will learn they're actually trapped in the wrong body and we'll castrate them. That was the plan. And it didn't work out. 3 years later, you can see that the West is losing to Russia. But they had 3 years to deal with the situation. During that whole 3 years, even after the initial agreement, which again, the West reneged on, Putin said, I'm always willing to negotiate. The West did not negotiate. And in fact, it went so far, Zelensky put in the Ukrainian constitution that it was illegal to negotiate with Russia. So that's how hardcore they were. So Trump is right saying, well, you had 3 years to get off your asses and do something. You didn't do shit. And now I come in and within less than a month, I'm fixing the situation. And now you're whining like a little bitch that you don't have a seat at the table. Well, you had 3 years to get a seat at the table. You didn't do shit. All right. In negotiations, you didn't do shit. I am in less than 3 weeks. So I have done more in 3 weeks to get peace than you guys did in 3 years. So don't come bitching to me that you deserve a seat at the table. You don't. You squander that. So if you want a seat at the table, go to Paris. They have their little kiddies table. And you can go there with Ursula, the girl boss, and Macron, and the British commie Starmer, and all that. You guys can have your little kiddie table and make your proclamations. By the way, that little kiddie table they had in Paris, that ended up in a disaster for them. They're supposed to be unified, but halfway through the meeting, Germany stomped out because Starmer, the head of the UK, and Macron, they had this vision of sending troops into Ukraine, and Germany's like, nah, homie, we're out of this. We're not doing that. We had bad experiences in our history sending troops into Russia. We're not going to do that, or Ukraine. And Poland said, nah, we're not doing that either. So the whole thing just broke apart, and it didn't accomplish anything. This happened, remember, when Rubio was negotiating with the Russians in Saudi Arabia.
And a long time before that, this could have been settled very easily. Just
It was settled. It was settled 2 months after the war started.
a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without.
Yeah, the original agreement that Russia signed with Ukraine was pretty favorable to Ukraine. They kept basically the Donbass. It just provided guarantees for the Russian ethnic population that they wouldn't be killed for being ethnic Russians. They could still speak Russian. Their religion wouldn't be banned because, the Ukrainians, they banned the Russian Orthodox Church.
Without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides, you have those magnificent golden domes that are shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful, you can't replace that. A whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago?
Yeah. So, Trump's right about that. So they can't play that role. They had 3 years to get off their asses and do something, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. So they don't have the right now to bitch and complain because they were incompetent after all these years. That's not going to fly. Trump will not, definitely, he's not going to tolerate that. And let's see here. I just want to make sure I got up. All right, we got some more Trump stuff here.
I believe they have to find out, where is the money going to? We have, I believe President Zelensky said last week that he doesn't know where half of the money is that we gave him. Well, we gave them, I believe, $350 billion, but let's say it's something less than that, but it's a lot.
Yeah, so this is a problem with Trump if they don't know where half the money went. Obviously, the answer for that, Ukraine's an extremely corrupt country. It's always been known, one of the more corrupt countries in Europe. Obviously, a lot of the money was stolen and put in secret bank accounts, including Zelensky. Obviously, there's no reason Zelensky should be living the life he does based on his income. So, yeah, that is, it is really great, crazy. Some more statements from Trump about this.
Wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, I'll answer this. Obviously, the whole rationale for our supporting Ukraine is they're a democracy standing up against the authoritarian Russia. Even though Russia does have elections, you can say they're fraudulent or whatever, but I think Putin won like 70% of the vote. Ukraine didn't. They just canceled their elections. They do not have any sense of democratic free press. They don't have free religion. They've arrested Christians. So it's all a joke. They're not a democracy.
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine. we're the leader in Ukraine. I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating.
A 4% approval rating. I don't think it's that low, but maybe.
And where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. The whole, I mean, so many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you
So Trump's saying and he knows, he's a commander in chief, he gets intelligent briefings, that Russia could wipe out Kiev quick, but they're not, they're holding back.
have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, you know, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also.
So Trump's saying that Ukraine, they need an election, and that's not a Russian demand. That is an American demand, that in order to Ukraine to have any legitimacy, because how can Zelensky sign a peace agreement if he's not a legitimate leader of Ukraine, meaning he's a dictator, he wasn't legitimately elected, or he was elected, but then he canceled the elections. It'd be like in 4 years, Trump decides to cancel the elections, say, no, we're not going to do elections anymore. I'm just always the president. I think there would be some pushback that, well, it's not a democracy, right? That's what Zelensky did. And of course, some of the mainstream media, they're worried about it. They don't want elections. And why don't they want elections? Well, I'll take a look at this here. There are concerns that Ukrainian president could be voted out of office if the country holds an election. And so they're worried. This is a concern, according to Newsweek. It could be a bad result. He could lose. Well, Zelensky says he's real popular. This is just really crazy. So this is the modern left. Their idea, they're for elections as long as their guy wins. Otherwise, they just cancel elections. Or ban the political party. Like Germany was talking about banning the AfD. In Europe, in Romania, they canceled an election because they didn't like the wrong guy won. So this is how they think. They go, well, we can't have elections in Ukraine because the people probably won't vote for him. So we can't do that. We can't do that. So, yeah, it doesn't look good for Zelensky. I don't think he's going to be around that much longer, but we will see. So, all right, let's see here. Let me go down. We'll kind of pivot here to domestic. I want to get some domestic stuff going on here because Trump is doing good. And one of this is he sat down with Sean Hannity and Elon Musk, and they talked about a lot of stuff. Elon is working for Trump as part of Doge to try to figure out all the fraud and everything that's happening. And let's listen just to a little bit of this here.
So, like, I'm a technologist, and I try to make technologies that improve the world and make life better.
Your shirt.
Yeah, and that's why I like my T-shirts.
Tech support.
Tech support, because I'm here to provide the president with technology support. And now that may seem like, well, is that a silly thing? But actually, it's a very important thing, because the president will make these executive orders, which are very sensible and good for the country, but then they don't get implemented, you know?
That's what happened in his first term, and this is the difference in President Trump this term. He's got very smart people that are following through. Because in his first term, Trump, he's trying to get along with all these people, and he'd give executive orders. They would just ignore it. And we got to change that.
So if you take, for example, all the funding for the migrant hotels, the president issued an executive order. Hey, we need to stop taking taxpayer money and paying for luxury hotels for illegal immigrants.
Obviously, this is just absurd to begin with. So illegal immigrants, in the name, they're illegal. They need to be arrested, sent back to their homelands. But instead, your tax dollars were paying for luxury hotels for these criminals to live in. What the hell's up with that?
which makes no sense. Like, so obviously people do not want their tax dollars going to fund high-end hotels for illegals.
This is an example where in a supposed democracy, the people should have the say in this, but we don't. Because if you put this up to a vote of even in a liberal area, do you think you want to spend money to have illegal aliens stay at luxury hotels for free? The vast majority of people would vote no.
And yet they were still doing that, even as late as last week. And so, we went in there and we're like, this is in violation of the presidential executive order. It needs to stop. So what we're doing here is one of the biggest functions of the DOGE team is just making sure that the presidential executive orders are actually carried out. And this is, I just want to point out, this is a very important thing because the president is the elected representative of the people. So he's representing the will of the people. And if the bureaucracy is fighting the will of the people and preventing the president from implementing what the people want, then what we live in is a bureaucracy and not a democracy.
No. You're both.
Yeah, and that's a correct point. So there's been a lot of pushback, obviously, from the bureaucracy, but I've been impressed so far, Trump fighting against this, and I think it's been so far positive. One of the ideas that was floated yesterday by Elon, I think someone else suggested it, and Elon said, this is a good idea, is he proposed that all Americans like you, all taxpayers or Americans, will get a $5,000 check because of all the money they save from waste by funding all this bullshit. How about give us a refund? I think this is a great idea. So all the money that was going to transgender education and opera in Columbia, because we cut that, why don't we get that money back? And so this would be very popular. We'll see what happens. I want to doubt that this comes up. So it'd be interesting. So we may get a refund for all that's for all the waste that's been going on and fraud. All right. This next thing, I had to double check if this was real. I'm like, okay, this is probably fake news, but I saw it was trending on X and it was reported in multiple places. So it's not fake news. It seems genuine. The COVID vaccine faces ban for all Americans in a radical U-turn by the Trump team. So, wow. So I remember it wasn't that long ago, and I think I've told you guys, the most trouble I've ever had with YouTube. I've been on YouTube since 2008. I mean, forever. I've been on YouTube, right? The most strikes I've ever had, by far, have been COVID related. I mean, so this was their holy cow that medical misinformation, which ironically it turns out they were supporting lies and the other people had the truth, and YouTube censors were perpetuating fake news and lies, and one of those was the vaccine. And now officially the United States is not only not making it mandatory to get the vaccine, they are looking at banning the COVID vaccine because it's potentially dangerous based on what they're saying. And I just remember, you remember the days on X, all the stupid sheep, the virtue signalers, they would have their profile pic wearing a stupid mask, and they would have a bunch of little syringes that showed they're great people because we care. We don't hate our grandma, you selfish bastard. You remember those people? It turns out they were all wrong. And now the vaccine may actually be banned in America. I mean, what a life we're living. This is like a simulation or something. So there's a potential COVID vaccines for all you guys that love COVID vaccine and all the boosters. It may be illegal pretty soon. They're getting rid of it. Wow, what a change there. Let's see here. Some other good news. This is an issue that we've had in Arkansas, a lot of Chinese buying the farmlands, and Trump is looking to ban China from purchasing American farmlands. We shouldn't have foreign countries buying our property anyway. This is our home. I support this. This would be good news if this happens. Hopefully we'll see a ban and that will come into fruition. So again, excellent news. Great to see that's happening. All right, let's see what else here. Trump talking about Doge and all the savings. Let's take a look at him talking about this and all the crazy stuff that was being spent and we're getting rid of now.
Where's the, that's just that. And then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance. Investments in Africa and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. It's the most, I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but they, I paid like $50,000, not $520 million. $520 million for ESG. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million to go into Colombia.
And social responsible behavior means promoting various types of homosexuality.
For something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. $40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. $42 million. What about us?
So they're using $42 million to do propaganda Uganda. And he just goes through a list here for 4 minutes. But yeah, this is just ridiculous things that we're being spent money on. And this is a good one. I mean, it's good that this is happening. Okay, let's listen to one of my favorite people in the Trump administration. I think J.D. Vance is my favorite. And I like Elon Musk too. But I've always had a thing. Steve Miller's always been pretty brilliant. Let's listen to him fight with CNN. It is pretty interesting here.
Of Doge. Chief of Staff for Policy. Stephen, thank you so much for taking time for us. So who is in charge of Doge?
The President of the United States.
He's the administrator of Doge?
No, the Doge is what was formerly U.S. Digital Services. It's an agency of the federal government that reports into the office of the Executive Office of the President, which reports to the President of the United States.
Okay.
The way that Article 2 works is the President wins an election, and then he appoints staff, including myself, including Mike Waltz, including Susie Wiles,
yes,
including Elon Musk, and those staff report to him.
Okay, well aware. So Elon Musk a week ago answered a question about transparency at Doge. This is how he spoke about Doge.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent.
You hear him there. We post our actions. All of our actions are maximally transparent. Does Elon Musk know he's not in charge of Doge?
Again, the president runs the government, then the president appoints advisors, including Elon, including myself, including all the other staff here at the White House, and then those staff in turn execute the president's commands and directions to all the agencies of the federal government. This is how democracy works, something that we treasure in America.
He's having to talk to her like she's a kindergartner. I mean, I don't know. She considers what Elon Musk said as a gotcha. I really don't see the issue here, although she's got her frowny face on.
The whole American people go to the ballot box, they elect the president appoints staff, the staff then administer his orders and directives across the whole U.S. government.
Okay, Stephen, I get that, but this is important because we want to talk about who's making the decisions here. There were 300 employees, the National Nuclear Security Administration, you know about this. They were fired. The agency had to rescind those terminations because these were employees who were critical to maintaining the nation's nuclear stockpile. So then who is it making those decisions of which federal employees are terminated?
Well, in that case, the Secretary of Energy would be the one. So what you're describing with the cuts in the Department of Energy, those are directed by the Senate-confirmed Secretary of Energy.
Okay, so that was the Secretary of Energy's mistake.
Well, I wouldn't use the term mistake. I would say that it's pretty standard when you're downsizing government. You make cuts, you assess those cuts, you see who needs to be rehired, who needs to be kept, who needs to be
That's not what happened here, though, Stephen. You know that they were rescinded. These aren't normal things. These were terminations that were rescinded.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see is a government that is finally delivering a promise of accountability under President Trump. You want to have a conversation about transparency. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with a B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone. Transparency begins with having an accounting of where every federal dollar is spent.
Yeah, this should be obvious. And this is one of the big things that Elon Musk found. And I was kind of shocked. It's just how there's a lack of accounting in the United States government that would get people in the private sector arrested, frankly, if you ran your company this way. But the government was spending money on with no accounting controls, like where does this check go to? What's the category? Is this like entertainment expense? Is this travel? What is it? None of that. Comment, what's this? No, we don't know. And so you have all this money, no one knows. And that's why it's just not like at USAID. I think it's systemic throughout the government. And obviously through everyone, scammers have learned they can scam the US government, including countries like Ukraine. So I'm not really surprised when like half the money Ukraine went missing. And, you know, until Trump was involved, no one cared or looked into it. Half. We're not talking like, you know, oh, okay, we're off like $100. We're talking billions just missing. And isn't that a red flag?
And God bless President Trump for leading this effort.
Stephen, it seems like the crisis here had to do with the nation's nuclear stockpile. And for these particular federal workers, which I'm not, so this isn't my personal crisis, military members of the Guard and the Reserve.
I don't think it's a crisis, and
I
you
want to
don't
ask you
think
about
it's
this.
well. Hold on. I don't think it's a crisis, and you don't think it's a crisis. Then why are we talking about it?
Military.
Miller handles the media really well, and I think that is pretty good there. So, yeah, well, CNN thinks it's a crisis because they're part of the deep state, is the reason. And even though they're not directly federal workers, that is where it's happening there. So, yeah, that is definitely doing that. Let's see here. Some more on the Trump stuff. We'll see more domestic. And thank you guys for being here. And remember, we have the show tonight. I'm going to post the show right after this show with Z-Man. That's going to be a lot of fun. The Wednesday wrap-up. Breaking, the Trump administration is preparing to fire hundreds of high-level Department of Homeland Security employees this week as part of the move to get rid of the country's third largest agency of people deemed to be misaligned with the administration's goals. Yeah, we don't need the Department of Homeland Security. We didn't have it. It came into fruition after 9/11. And as it was, people were worried about Muslim terrorists, they quickly forgot that part of their mission, and they were just used to terrorize white Americans. And yeah, so I think that is something we could get rid of that agency, just like we could get rid of the FBI. The FBI is not doing their job, and I think that is something we can definitely redo. So let me see here. And some of the plane that crashed in Canada that flipped over. We don't know the reason why that happened, although we all saw it. Thankfully, no one died. But the Delta Airlines flight that flipped over and crashed at Pearson Airport was operated by Endeavor. They're a subsidiary. that has relentlessly pushed DEI initiatives and has bragged about having unmanned all-female flights that contain no male staff. So this is, Delta thinks it's great to have airlines or pilots where there's no men involved. And I have no doubt that this may have been a DEI related accident. And this is what we need to clean up, and we need to get qualified people in the cockpit. Now, to be fair, flying the plane, you don't need pilots for the most part. The computer can do it. But sometimes in landing and in difficult conditions, you need someone that can handle it, and that could be an issue there. So, yeah, that is kind of where we are there. Another thing that came up, and I'd just like to reiterate, a lot of people get confused on this. This is a message I brought up a lot. Hopefully it'll become more mainstream. I'm not the first one to make this up, but people used to understand this. But there's this whole thing of, oh, well, you know, Elon Musk technically is an African American, right? No, he's not African, he's white. And so it started that whole row, I guess as the British would call it. They get in a fight. And this guy was trying to defend Elon, saying, if white South Africans aren't Africans, then no brown British man is British. Well, that's actually true. But you have to explain. You have to understand the difference between nationality and citizenship. Because there's a difference between nation and country. And because we blur that distinction, which used to be obvious to everyone, they get all twisted in their heads. And it's not that complicated of a concept. By definition, the word nation comes from the Latin natio, which means birth, to give birth to it, something like neonatal. So a nation is a group of people that is related by blood. That's a nation. So you can't join a nation. That's what you're born into. A country is just a geographic political designation. And then a country can contain one or more nations. And if you're a nationalist, you believe that a country and a nation should be basically the same. For example, let's use Japan, because they're not white, so it's a little easier for people to understand this point without hyperventilating. But obviously, the idea that I could be become Japanese is ridiculous. I'm not Japanese. That's not my race. That's not my ethnicity. Now, theoretically, I could go to Japan and they could make me a Japanese citizen. So would I be a Japanese citizen? Yes. Would I be Japanese? No. In the same way, someone from Pakistan that moves to Britain, could they become a British citizen? Yes. Are they nationality English? No, they never can be. That's the difference between that. And this really works people up and they get real confused about it, but it should be a simple concept. We use this all the time. For example, the United States, we have like Cherokee Nation, and they get a lot of privileges because they're Indians, they're an Indian tribe. But I just can't join it. You got to be born into it. They're a nation. And they're a nation that doesn't have a country. So you can have a nation that doesn't have a country, like the Palestinians. Jewish people, they're a nation, even though they have a country now, Israel, but for a long time they didn't. And by the way, if you don't have this concept, then something that I think Oprah Winfrey said that got her in trouble, but I think, was it her or Whoopi Goldberg, that she didn't care about the Holocaust because it was just white on white crime. And there's a logic to what she's saying, because if you believe this, oh no, that's hateful. Anyone that's in the country, they're just of the same nationality. All right, then the German Jews were no different than the regular Germans, right? So it was just Germans who were white killing other Germans who happen to have a different religion. But that doesn't even make sense because most Jews don't follow that religion. So then you're in a whole knot like, well, so what? Is this Germans killing their own people? Well, no, they weren't Germans, so they make the distinction. So it's this little game about nationality. Sometimes they believe in it, sometimes they don't. I don't have that problem because I believe in it 100%. All right? An African can never be an Englishman. Never. You just can't. because it's genetic. Now he can be British citizenship, and you can say he's a good British citizen. I mean, that's another topic. But nationality has to do with genetics. It has to do with blood. It doesn't have to do with politics. Citizenship has to do with politics. So that is a thing a lot of people get all twisted about. And we really shouldn't, but people do get all kind of all confused about that. So that's where we are on that. All right, let's see here. Steve Miller had another good thing here. He fights back really well here. So let's take a look at Steve Miller. This is on immigration this time, not on Doge. So you have the grumpy reporterette that's upset. So let's listen here.
You mentioned yesterday, and you mentioned again here, illegal immigrants who are getting child tax credits. Are you looking for that information in the IRS data?
Well, we should. They shouldn't be here. We should figure out where they are so we can send them back to their homeland. We should not have people that are here illegally taking our taxes. That's just common sense.
Anytime a crime is committed, of course there should be an investigation.
Right. And all illegal immigrants have committed a crime, so there should be an investigation.
Is it your position that if somebody who is
Stephen,
here
are you looking for that
is stealing
information in the
taxpayer
IRS
dollars,
data?
the federal government will find every illegal alien who is stealing American taxpayer dollars, and that is what Americans expect
find that
to happen.
in the IRS
I don't
data
even
and
fathom
share
the
that with
premise
law
of your
enforcement?
question.
It's a simple question. Will
Anyone
you find that
who is-
information in the IRS data and
If-
share that with?
They should. I don't understand why we are paying money to illegals. Why would the IRS be paying money to illegals? I think what's happening here, and I didn't even know this was happening, but I guess you could be in this country illegally, and then you file with the IRS, even though you don't have a social security number, you're illegal, and the IRS will give you money. Do they get like refunds for popping out kids illegally in this country?
If IRS investigators find illegal aliens stealing taxpayer money, of course they'll be referred to ICE.
Of course they should be. They should be arrested. They should be deported immediately and the money given back. We should confiscate whatever they have.
Of course they'll be referred to Homeland Security investigations. Of course it will be. Surely your position is not that we should let illegal aliens steal taxpayer dollars. Again, you want to talk about something to be upset about, that's it. What do you think? The millions of illegal aliens who've also stolen Social Security. Illegal aliens in mass have fake Social Security numbers. They have fake identities. Those are felonies.
That is a felony.
Why should there be an entire class in this country that is immunized from criminal prosecution and arrest for committing felonies? Felony theft of taxpayer information, felony theft of Social Security, felony theft of identity. These are all crimes. And yes, they will be investigated. Yes, they will be prosecuted. And yes, illegal aliens will be deported. And you know what happens when those deportations occur?
Just very quickly,
is that Americans will get jobs, Americans will get benefits, Americans will get houses.
Stephen, if they got a credit, a child tax credit, and they...
Wait a minute. Well, how would they get a child tax credit? They don't pay taxes. They're illegal. They're not here legally. So what she's talking about?
They will be referred, you're saying, to ICE for that. And you would expect deported for that? Is that the position of the administration?
If it is found that a crime has been committed, they'll be referred. If it justifies a prosecution, they'll be prosecuted. If it justifies a deportation, they will be deported. This will be based on existing IRS protocols and procedures for criminal investigation and fraud.
All right,
the difference is that no one is given immunity anymore. No one is given permission to break the law anymore. Because this is not a country, this is not a sovereign territory. If illegal aliens can freely steal billions, with a B, billions of taxpayer dollars. And I would have to imagine that CNN, which is endlessly talked about the importance of democracy and the rule of law, would say that no class in this country should be above the law, least of all illegal aliens who've trespassed on our territory.
No, Stephen, I'm just asking, I wanted to get your position on some things. We're not taking a position here. We wanted to get some...
We're just being neutral. Well, I give my little frowny face. what she was trying to frame this as is, oh, these poor kids, when they pop out their babies, they're no longer going to be giving tax refunds. It's like, what the hell? Why are they here in the first place? So that was her thing that she was trying to do. Hey, the funny truth, thank you. Stephen Miller is number 2 on the power rankings after Jesus Christ. Yeah, Stephen Miller, I do like Stephen Miller. He is good. So thank you for that rant. I appreciate that. All right. Let's see here. This was funny, and it triggered a lot of the shit libs. But this was from the White House. This is a feel-good thing. This is a ASMR, illegal alien deportation. Back to their homelands. Back to their homelands. Yeah, that is calming to see that happen. That is so good. Instead of seeing all these people flood in this country, I want to see more, but it is good to see them start to be deported. What a nice sight. What a glorious sight. So yeah, that is that's happening. All right, the other thing that's happening domestically, because the protests are deporting a lot of illegals, there's going to be a big protest where I guess Mexicans and all of them are not going to shop. Economic blackout for 24 hours starting February 28th. Oh no! Could you imagine going to Walmart with no Mexicans? Oh no! So they're going to make us regret it. So it looks like a good day to go shopping. It should be nice and pleasant. So anyway, the shit libs are trying to do this. Don't shop on February 28th, which I think will make it a very popular shopping day. I hope they all boycott. I would definitely shop that day. It'd be a nice, pleasant experience. Be like taking a time machine. So, yeah, that will be good here. Let's see here. I haven't done some of the LGBTQ updates, but they are still going on. And here's one here. Maybe I'll show you guys this. Okay, here we go.
Locker rooms, year-old registered sex.
All right, this is a guy, although in Britain, you'd be thrown into prison if you said this was a man. Because this guy, he says he's a woman, and he can go into girls' locker rooms and show his female penis to other girls.
Offender Richard Cox is facing more charges in Arlington County after he allegedly exposed himself to women and children in women's locker rooms at schools and rec centers. Cox faces 22 charges that include several counts of indecent exposure, being in proximity to children and entering schools, and taking indecent liberties with children. And Arlington police say more charges may be sought as more victims come forward. 7 News' Nick Minock shows us how one of those victims spoke at last night's Arlington School Board meeting, demanding the board change their policy that allowed Cox in the girls' locker room.
Yeah, because he identifies as a woman. And the rule is if you say you're a woman, that means you're a woman. Because you remember they couldn't, that Supreme Court judge, that nominee, she didn't know what a woman was. This is the logical result. So you have these predators that say, oh yeah, I'm a woman. So this guy says he's a woman. He should be allowed in to expose himself to children.
My 9-year-old daughter and I walked into the Washington Liberty Women's Locker Room on September 9th, 2024, and were stunned to see a naked biological man standing among little girls and moms and changing after swim class.
On Thursday, this mother told the Arlington School Board they need to encourage victims to speak to police and to change APS policy that allows people to use school locker rooms and bathrooms based on gender identity. That policy allowed 58-year-old Richard Cox to use Arlington girls' school locker rooms. The schools have indoor pools open to the public after school hours. In court documents, Cox said he identifies as a transgender woman. In September, Jen McDougal says she met with School Board Chair Mary Cadera and told her about what happened to her and her daughter.
This is why the Democrat Party is insane. They can't acknowledge that that's just a pervert. That's a perverted man, a predator. He's not a woman just because he says he's a woman. But they can't even acknowledge that.
Cadera said APS added signs encouraging people to be considerate of others and cover private parts in locker rooms. But Cox continued to use schoolgirl locker rooms, according to police. On Thursday, I emailed Mary Cadera and asked her why was that her solution instead of calling the police immediately. As of Friday afternoon, Cadera did not respond. At a January school board meeting, Cadera said she did not know Cox was a sex offender when she met with McDougal.
The sex offender was let go in Fairfax County.
McDougal is also frustrated that Fairfax County Commonwealth's attorney Steve Descano did not prosecute Cox months earlier when he was charged for exposing himself in Planet Fitness women's locker rooms. Now, in a budget hearing next week, Supervisor Pat Harity is proposing to cut Descano's budget since he's prosecuting fewer cases.
We're looking at a potential $300 million shortfall, over $300 million shortfall. His office has doubled and he's doing less. I think that's the first place we should be looking to cut. Certainly not our fire department.
And Harity is pushing to rescind Fairfax County's locker room policy that allowed Cox to use women's locker rooms at Fairfax County rec centers.
I understand you spoke to a family member of one of the victims. What did she say?
That young girl is still traumatized. She had to run and lock herself in a bathroom stall and wait until she felt it was safe to run out of the locker room. It's unbelievable that women and girls are being asked to use the family locker room so that Richard Cox can use the girls' locker room.
Nick Minock, 7 News.
58-year-old Red.
This is just the insanity that has plagued our nation. Obviously, that is not a woman. No one, the left has this weird denial of reality. And so we got to the point where this sexual pervert is running around claiming to be female and exposing himself to little girls. It is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. All right. We'll wrap up here. And then tonight I have the show with the Z-Man. I'm so excited. I'll post that here pretty soon. But this is one of those man on the street or woman on the street interviews. And you don't know. I never know if it's serious, but it could be serious. People are really stupid. And sometimes there's a little pushback because I think there's a show called like Whatever or something. And it's called Misogynist because they always get these bimbos on there and they expose how stupid they are. But here's a woman that claims that Finland's not really a country.
Finland is not a real country. It is just a guise set up by the country of Japan so that they can do free fishing in the area that Finland occupies, but it's just the ocean.
Wait, elaborate. What?
So Japan wants to have a really good fishing spot that nobody knows about, so they created the guise of Finland. And Finland is not really there. It's just the ocean.
Talking about big fish?
Big fish.
Finland is the fishing spot? Like, yes. They got boats here?
Yes. So on maps, you'll see the country Finland. But if you really go there, it's not. It's just, there is no country to the east of Sweden.
What about all the Finnish people?
The Finnish people, they're really Swedish. Have you ever met anybody from Finland?
I guess I haven't. No, have you?
No, I haven't.
So there you go, Kim. You don't exist. Finland is a conspiracy by Japan. It's just a body of water, and it doesn't really exist. And I don't know if she's serious. She could have been serious. That's the thing. We got some really stupid people. So I've been to Finland though. So I can confirm it's not just a body of water, and there are Finnish people. Oh boy, but she votes. So anyway, guys, it's a great show. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. But tonight I'll be on at 7 with Z-Man. We should have a lot of fun. We'll do some little bit of foreign and domestic stuff. We'll get kind of a deep dive into stuff. So look forward to seeing you guys tonight, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.